Welcome to a Bible talk from Lower Mountains Anglican Church.
So our first Bible reading today is from Isaiah chapter 2, and we're reading verses 6 through to 22. It's on page 681 in the church Bibles. You, Lord, have abandoned your people, the descendants of Jacob. They are full of superstitions from the east. They practice divinations like the Philistines. They embrace pagan customs. Their land is full of silver and gold. There is no end to their treasures. Their land is full of horses. There is no end to their chariots. Their land is full of idols. They bow down to the work of their hands, to what their fingers have made. So people will be brought low and everyone humbled. Do not forgive them. Go into the rocks, hide in the ground from the fearful presence of the Lord and the splendour of his majesty. The eyes of the arrogant will be humbled and human pride brought low. The Lord alone will be exalted on that day. The Lord Almighty has a day in store for all the proud and lofty, for all that is exalted, and they will be humbled, for all the cedars of Lebanon, tall and lofty, and all the oaks of Bashan, for all the towering mountains and all the high hills, for every lofty tower and every fortified wall, for every trading ship and every stately vessel. The arrogance of man will be brought low and human pride humbled. The Lord alone will be exalted on that day, and the idols will totally disappear. People will flee to caves in the rocks and to holes in the ground from the fearful presence of the Lord and the splendour of his majesty, when he rises to shake the earth. In that day, people will throw away to the moles and bats their idols of silver and idols of gold, which they made to worship. They will flee to caverns in the rocks and to the overhanging crags from the fearful presence of the Lord and the splendour of his majesty, when he rises to shake the earth. Stop trusting in mere humans who have but breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem?
Just turn the page over, because the second reading is from Isaiah chapter 4, verses 2 to 6, and you'll find that on page 683. In that day, the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land will be the pride and glory of the survivors in Israel. Those who are left in Zion, who remain in Jerusalem, will be called holy, all those who are recorded among the living in Jerusalem. The Lord will wash away the filth of the women of Zion. He will cleanse the bloodstains from Jerusalem by a spirit of judgment and a spirit of fire. Then the Lord will create over all Mount Zion and over those who assemble there a cloud of smoke by day and a glow of flaming fire by night. Over everything the glory will be a canopy. It will be a shelter and a shade from the heat of the day, and a refuge and hiding place from the storm and the rain.
Hello everyone, and welcome to church today as we continue digging into Isaiah. There are so many wonderful pictures here of judgment and of grace that we get to explore. So often the book of Isaiah is complex, yet its message is simple. God will bring salvation through judgment. God will bring salvation through judgment. Now, kids, these were handed out. You've got these, okay? I want you to go to your sermon notes page. If you're a kid that can read and write, or if you get your parents to help you as well, if you want them to write down the notes for you, okay? And this will help you write down a few things, engage with the sermon, and there's going to be a few things in here for kids as well, right? Now, the main point of Isaiah, and here's the first thing to write down. And Phil, I'm throwing you a curveball on the slides. Can you go to the main point of Isaiah's slide, which is God will bring salvation through judgment. God will bring salvation through judgment. And you can write that down in the main point of Isaiah. It's not there. I thought it was like slide 8 or something. Is the one before that? Yeah, there we go. The message of Isaiah. Salvation through judgment. So you can write that down. That is the main point. And then you can try and write down as we go, what problem do the people face? What hope does God offer? What did I learn that I'm going to share with my family? And maybe we can discuss that in the cars on the way home. But as we read chapter 2, it seems that it's only judgment, that it's only bad news. God's people don't seem to want or need God. They have all the treasures they could want. Their land is full of silver and gold. They have all the safety they could want. Their land is full of horses and chariots. They have all the gods they could want, for they have themselves. And they bow down to the work of their own hands, to what their fingers have made. They have abandoned God, and now it seems that He has abandoned them. As we read in Isaiah, so people will be brought low and everyone humbled. Do not forgive them. And they're not the words that we expect. They're words that should cause us to fear and to question, has God really abandoned His people? Will He indeed not forgive? Will He really bring salvation? The eyes of the arrogant will be humbled and human pride brought low. The Lord alone will be exalted in that day. All will be brought low. Only God will be exalted. Do not forgive. This should fill the people of Judah and Jerusalem with fear. Judgment is coming. But it's not only God's words that should fill them with fear, but His presence. The people will be brought low, even hiding in the ground as they flee from the fearful presence of the Lord. But of course, even hiding in the rocks and the ground, they will be unable to escape God's judgment. They're called to hide, but it's a sarcastic mocking. It's a reinforcement of the dire situation that God's people find themselves in, a situation that they seem unwilling to turn from. These are fearsome words spoken to an unrepentant people, a people unwilling to hear God's words and turn to worship Him, a people who love sin more than they love God, a people who worship themselves and not their Creator. They're fearsome words which make clear that the Lord Almighty has a day in store to judge, to bring down the proud and lofty. Everything they have will be taken away. Everything they have will be destroyed. The arrogance of man will be brought low and human pride will be humbled. The Lord alone will be exalted in that day, and the idols will totally disappear. These are words that should cause us to tremble as well. For God rises to shake the earth. And in anticipation of when God will shake the earth, we should tremble. The whole earth should tremble. We need to tremble at God's holiness, His power, and His awe. And so marvel at Him and so fear Him that being so humbled, we don't rely on ourselves, on our bank accounts, on our family, on our houses for security, that we trust in God. So we aren't content with tolerating sin, tolerating, when we disobey God, but that we seek to root it out wherever we see it. So we aren't content to just push that nagging voice of our conscience to the back of our minds, but that we want to bring all of our life into alignment with God's will.
Nick?
Who said that?
Me?
What?
Over here.
Oh, hey, Jats. What's going on?
Well, it's just, I know that you're giving a sermon and all, and that's pretty important, but, you know, it is school holidays and there's lots of kids here, so I was thinking, maybe, do you think you could tell us a story?
You want me to tell a story?
Yeah.
Okay, kids, do you want me to tell a story? Do you want me to tell a story? Okay. Well, I guess I can try and think of a story. Okay, so this story, this is for kids, this is for adults, this is for everyone. Okay, one day, I've got the story. One day, a merchant...
What's a merchant?
Okay, a merchant's a person who buys and sells stuff. So one day, a merchant who buys and sells stuff was walking around his house. And he walked into his grand ballroom, and it was so nice. He admired all the books in his study.
What's a book?
What's a book? Jats, it's something you read. It's like an iPad, but you turn pages, you don't scroll. Okay. So he went to his stables, and this guy lived in like medieval times, and so horses were they cost $1 million, right? This was fancy. And he went to his stables and he admired all of his horses and all this great stuff that he had. And he walked through the town and he saw the tallest of the towers. He walked all the way to the docks where he saw the nicest ship.
Nick?
Yeah, yes, Jats, yeah.
Well, no offense, but, when will this story get interesting?
Well, what could make this story interesting?
Well, when I'm telling a story and it's really boring, because my mum says that happens sometimes, I say, and then I found $5. And it makes the story a lot more interesting.
Okay, I'll give it a try. Okay, so the man walked from the docks and he walked into the bank. And he went in and he looked at all his treasures, and it was way more than $5. You know, there was just piles and piles of treasure, of silver and of gold that sparkled and shined, that glistened and just radiated beauty. It was the most incredible and beautiful sight.
Nick?
Yeah, what is it, Jats?
Well, no offense, but this story's still a little boring.
What can I do to make it more interesting?
Add a dragon.
What?
That's right. Add a dragon. Everybody loves dragons. Then your story will be interesting.
Okay, I guess I can add a dragon. Okay, so the man walked out of the bank, and as he did, the sky got darker, and a shadow came over the whole land. And he looked up expecting to see a cloud, but instead he saw a dragon. And people were running and screaming in every direction. Kids, can you show me what it was like? Can you help with the sounds of people as they were screaming, as they were running away from the dragon? People were running this way and they were running that way, but the dragon could fly faster than the people could run. The man went to his stables. He tried to get on one of his horses, but they all ran in terror from the sight of the dragon. They disappeared. They could not save him.
This is more like it. This is a story with excitement and adventure.
And then the man fled up to the tallest tower, but as he did, the dragon just flew higher. He could not escape. The man ran back to the docks and he thought, maybe if I get on the finest of ships, I'll be able to escape. But the dragon came and broke the mast and shredded the sails. The man was running out of options. In desperation, he went back to the bank. He got all his silver and gold. He put it in a wagon and he offered it to the dragon. In desperation, he said, "Take this. Take all my silver, all my gold. Just spare my life." But the dragon breathed fire onto the cart, and all his silver and his gold began to melt. At first, the man was distraught. He was worried. He was anxious. He didn't know what to do. He wanted his silver and his gold more than anything else. But as he stood there with the dragon so close, he saw something. He truly saw the dragon, not a shadow, not a silhouette up in the sky, not from a distance.
Hey, Nick.
Jats, I'm on a roll, buddy. I'm on a roll.
This story's a little scary.
A bit scary. Okay, well, he truly saw the dragon, and it was a good dragon. He saw the dragon, and as he saw the dragon, he saw something so beautiful that made his own gold and silver seem like dirt. He saw scales that shone with the light of 1,000 suns. He saw claws which glistened greater than the largest of diamonds. He saw eyes, the dragon's eyes, that were full of majesty, of wisdom and power, eyes that spoke to him and whispered, "Come to me. Come to me and you will be saved. Come to me and you will be safe." And then the man knew that if he tried to run from the dragon, he would be destroyed. But if he ran to the dragon, he would be safe. There was no safe place he could hide except for the dragon itself. And if he ran to the dragon, he would know beauty greater than he had ever known, strength greater than he had ever imagined, and comfort greater than he could ever dream. He ran to the safety of the dragon and he hid under the shadow of his wing. The fire burned around him. The town came tumbling down. Everything that the people had made in their own strength was destroyed. But he was safe in the shadow of the dragon's wing. And not only was he safe, but as the fire died down, he saw that the city was now more beautiful than he could have ever thought. The high towers that cast their shadows over the city were no longer needed, for the dragon would keep them safe. The dirt roads were dirt no longer, for the gold and silver had melted, and now the roads were paved with silver and gold. The dark and dingy rooms once needed for warmth were no longer needed, for the people who ran to the dragon were safe and warm in the shadow of his wing.
Wow! That was quite the story. Adventure, excitement, and a dragon.
Oh, thanks, Jats. I'm glad you liked it in the end.
But just one last question. What does any of this have to do with Isaiah?
Well, that is a good question, Jats. That is a good question. And kids, you might notice as well that there's a spot for you to answer that question under the picture of the dragon. So you can see if you can answer that question. That's a good question because we've seen that God is bringing judgment, that his fearful presence is coming down, that there's nowhere to hide. But then we have a glimmer of hope in verse 22. Stop trusting in mere humans who have but breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem? We have a call to stop trusting humans and to trust the Lord instead. God's people have abandoned him. And so he has abandoned them. He's handed them over to their idols, to the nations around them. But he will not abandon them forever. What is the result for the people of Judah and Jerusalem? If they stop trusting humans, if they stop looking to their gold and creating idols, what is the result if they turn to the Lord? He will shelter them. The Lord's coming will cause the whole earth to shake. The Lord's coming will cause the whole earth to fear. And the only escape from fear is to fear him. The ground won't protect them. The rocks won't protect them. The only protection comes from the Lord. Flee to him. For he keeps his promises. He brings salvation through judgment. Like the dragon, the Lord's coming will cause the whole earth to fear. And the only escape from fear is to fear him, to run to him. Stop trusting in mere humans who have but breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem? Trust God. Flee to him. And this glimmer of hope in verse 22 is brought to fulfillment in the promise of chapter 4. Then the Lord will create over all of Mount Zion and over all of those who assemble there a cloud of smoke by day and a glow of flaming fire by night. Over everything, the glory will be a canopy. It will be a shelter and a shade from the heat of the day, and a hiding place and a refuge from the storm and the rain. Even though God's people have abandoned him, he does not abandon them. He will shelter a remnant. He will bring righteous judgment. In the day of judgment, when Jesus returns, he will shelter the faithful. Just as he brought his people out of Egypt and into the promised land, so too he takes us through this world and into heaven, out of slavery to sin and into perfect life forever. In that day, the branch of the Lord will be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land will be the pride and glory of the survivors in Israel. Those who are left in Zion, who remain in Jerusalem, will be called holy. Can we have hope in judgment? Yes. If we fear the Lord, if we run to him, not away from him. For he will save those who run to his holy mountain, who flee to Jesus. Judgment is never easy, but God's judgment is good. For it purifies what is impure. It gives worth to what is worthless. It restores what is broken to bring blessing to the whole world. And so even though we know it will be a fearful day when Jesus returns, we can say with confidence, "Come, Lord Jesus," because God will be exalted. And here's the beautiful thing. He chooses to exalt us with him. For he will bring salvation through judgment. Then, in the punishment of the people and the preservation of the remnant, now, through the victory won by Christ on the cross, where justice and mercy meet, where evil is used for good, where salvation is brought through judgment as Christ takes our judgment for us. For this is the message of Isaiah. God brings salvation through judgment, and the word of the Lord is good.
You have been listening to a Bible talk from Lower Mountains Anglican Church. If you'd like to know more about Jesus, get further information, or download other resources, please visit our website at lmap.org.au.